Okay, welcome everybody. It's Marcus Schubert coming to you live from the Gold Coast in Australia. Special presentation tonight with Greenx and our special guest, Mr. David Smith. Before we get into the presentation tonight, I would have to say that this has to be one of the most special and exciting times in my career now, with 23 years involved in the direct selling industry. You know, most times we get to see products and we get to see companies all specially delivered and packaged at the end of the production line. But we are part of this company, Ormius Global, at a time where we're in pre-launch phase. We're at a time where we get to be given the information as it comes to hand. This presentation tonight will most likely give you a lot of new information. It may actually promote new questions for you. And we're at a point in time where, as the information comes to hand, we're giving it to you live, we're giving it to you raw, and we're giving it to you directly from the horse's mouth. So tonight we are giving you some information which I think is probably some of the most exciting information that we would have been given in our business careers. Many of you will look back at this point in time and see this as potentially a defining moment in your business career, in fact, if not in your life. Please understand that some of the information we cannot cover as far as questions due to protecting the commercial integrity of the opportunity. But tonight we get to hear directly from David Smith, who's an experienced consultant, trainer, manager, speaker, investor, and also successful business coach. He has had extensive sales performance and training experience, leading 3 companies to 7-figure weekly sales and triple-digit growth. He's been a former sales executive in the renewable energy space, also a VP of sales for Sirius Energy, director of sales for Sun Edison, and he's also had the privilege of managing over 100 sales consultants, managers, and support staff in multiple industries. On top of that, if that's not enough to add to his incredible resume, he managed one of the largest GM dealerships in the region with the responsibilities over market share, advertising, and sales operations. He enjoys speaking, networking, and servicing communities with projects tied to youth and charitable organizations all over the country. Over the last 25 years, he has literally mentored hundreds of people in the sales techniques arena. And his project and prior work has included the renewable energy companies, where he's led large sales offices to record performance in education and small business. He's certified with the Association of Finance and Insurance Professionals, member of the Society of Sales Executives, and licensed financial advisor. He owned a property holding and consulting company, co-owned and operated a mortgage broking firm, and spent 11 years in the auto industry as a new car finance and general sales manager. 12 years in telesales, training, and inside sales leadership. He also happens to be married, has 5 amazing children, loves music, exercise, and also loves to travel around the world, camping, skiing, playing tennis, and running. So David, with all of that, I'd love to hand this webinar over to you and learn a lot more about this incredible new product that I've been reading and hearing about, Greenx. So David, do we have you on the call tonight?
Yes, we do. Thank you, Marcus, and thank you for the time. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you might be. Grateful that we could spend a few moments in talking about something that is extremely exciting. It energizes me to use a bit of a pun, but we have so much exciting things that are happening. And one point I would like to state: the attorneys want to make sure that we had some forward-looking statements and information. There's also information that we are sharing before any type of public view. So information that's shared here, we would just please respect that we're keeping that with this group and not to be shared outwardly. As there's patented information and a lot of great new technologies that we're going to be going through today. So I won't read any of those statements. Hopefully you can appreciate the fact that we want to be sensitive to a breakthrough type technology. So let me just give you just a bit of a history as far as myself and working in large renewable energy groups. I worked with one of the largest, if not the largest, renewable energy development companies in the United States and in the world. as well as an energy company that was in the deregulated energy markets. And one thing that we've seen is that where energy and power is concerned, that the power grid is completely outdated. The technology is antiquated. We're looking at the same type of grid that has been in existence for the longest period of time. And as we have seen advancements in technology with the telecommunications industry, for example, most of the large telephone companies, when there were changes with the internet and there was voice over IP that was integrated, this digital way of sending information became the new technology, and most everything has moved over there except for the energy or the power grid. And what we're going to introduce to you today or tonight is that there is a way of digitizing energy. And if you think of that concept for just a minute, of how do we digitize energy, and is it possible, if it were possible, to fax energy, in a sense, from one location to another, this is some of the exciting things that we're going to be going through. So with that in mind, then let's talk about the power grid and how outdated it is. A 19th century technology, there's 21st century needs that are there in an ever-changing economy. In the 1970s, in the U.S. especially, there was what was called the energy crisis. And this is way before the 2008 or the later financial crisis that prompted some of the blockchain technology that we all enjoy today. But in the 1970s, this energy crisis led to advancements in energy policy, and it took all the way to the late 1990s and into 2000s before, at least in the United States, there were energy policy acts that allowed for deregulated energy. And what that means is you take your normal energy bill and power bill and you separate it into, there's generation of power and there's transmission of power. And it almost worked like the cellular phone industry, where companies could buy blocks of minutes and sell them in packages to their customers, and they were cheaper than the minutes or minute plans that they were getting otherwise. Or unlimited minutes became possible because it's shared in this larger pool. So introducing Green is the first and patented proof of power concept. This power process allows the Green blockchain to provide a decentralized way of effectively capturing, storing, and transmitting energy everywhere. So the Green process it's an appliance that it inverts power, your normal power, into digital energy. So we take that power generation side and we're just bridging the power generation with the transmission of the existing grid, and by interlacing the blockchain technology into the event where there's certain things that verify that there's an actual block that's created, then we interlace that with proof of power. So that might just sound a little bit confusing, and we don't want to get into the technical weeds here. If someone knocked on your door or knocked on your parents' door 50 years ago or more and said, let's even go back before then, and said, I've got this box, and if you put your dinner in there and press 20 seconds or a minute, it's going to heat it up. And one would think, what is this thing and how does it work? You really don't care. All you want to know is have a warm meal for dinner. The blockchain and proof of power with Green, again, what matters is the transmission and inversion of power. So we introduce this Green technology, and what it allows for is the game changer in the energy industry. So in the solar industry, which I've had a lot of experience in, we put solar panels on top of someone's roof, and the sun would shine on those solar panels. It would create a DC current, which was inverted into AC current that the house could use. So you have DC current turned into AC current, and the house, most homes run on any form of AC current. What we're doing here is we're taking this current, which can be AC or DC, invert it into what we're calling BC energy or blockchain digital energy. So this is the first proof of power. The blockchain directly connects power, energy data, and analytics and puts this into a provable process, which takes this traditional power grid or the renewable sources, any type of energy sources, then it's inverted, stored, and transferred using blockchain technology. It leverages existing technologies and basically connects them together in a way that can be shared and transmitted. The best way to probably explain it is what SkyMiles did for the airline industry. It allows for these credits, or because you're using air miles, that it allows for credits that can be transferred. Or what voice over IP did to the telecommunications industry, it took an analog voice, digitized it, sent it over through the air or through the internet, and then unencrypted it or digitized it back to an analog usable voice. So layer these together and we have this appliance, which is the Greenbox, the first of a kind. The Greenbox takes power directly from the grid or from a renewable energy source, converts it into data. It's about a toaster-sized device, an appliance that plugs right into the home energy and offsets the total energy expense. So those are these green boxes, or basically have been in alpha test for some time, and it's already functioning and working. And you're getting to be a part of the beta test where it's going to be distributed and delivered. Now, there's a lot of application that can be applied to this, and we can't really get into some of the details of how that can be used, but let your mind wander on that for just a minute. And if you can digitize energy, then it also can be shared, so crowdsourced energy now becomes a reality. And the proof of power concept basically is, if I have power, let's just say that I'm in the state of Hawaii and I'm paying 41 cents a watt for the power that I use. What if I could get an appliance that could be plugged in somewhere at 5 cents a watt? And if I plug in that power at 5 cents a watt, digitize the power, send it over to me, then I can essentially pay for my current transmission of power through credited SkyMiles type digital energy and be able to use that for power or for anything that I would like. So hopefully this is starting to take form as to how this technology works and how exciting it can be. So how the Greenbox works. A simple appliance, you plug it in to any power source. We have a Greenbox Home and a Greenbox Pro, which is more of a commercial device. Let me just explain that power, if you have access to power, then that power can be digitized. What the user does is basically plug in the device. The device uses blockchain technology and is basically gaining rewards for hashing and doing calculations. The energy that it uses, there's a snapshot with a proprietary algorithm that takes place when that reward or token is created, and that is put into a virtual battery, an energy or blockchain battery of energy that can be stored and then later used. Very simple to utilize the technology is you have to first find out and get an appraisal of the energy that a user has. Are they at a rate which is below a mean of supply versus demand? And if they are, then the box could be plugged in anywhere in the world to power the lowest possible source. And then there's options of whether it's donating power, owning the Greenbox, or both donor and owner of the appliance. The software allows the Greenbox to be connected to the Green blockchain, and that appliance basically maintains the Greenbox ensures that the algorithms are functioning properly, and that the rewards for the green rewards basically are being created. Those credits go into a green card or green smart wallet that could be utilized and basically used for mainly power and other things in the future. I'll give you just a quick look of what that appraisal looks like. Within the software, a user will be able to go in and input their utility bill and say, I'm using X amount. My in this example, if their total cost for the appliance, let's say the green box is $2,500, and their 5-year energy costs are calculated. Let's just say that it's $200 per month in total energy cost. Add to that the cost that it would be for the appliance, and you have your 5-year green box energy costs that are completed and the rewards that are estimated, and that gives a 5-year energy rewards. In this case, it would be $18,504. So suppose that were possible to be able to take energy sky miles and apply that towards someone's bill. What it really makes this whole thing magical is in the solar industry, 50% of the people that we talked to did not qualify for solar renewable energy because of shading, because of roof type, because of credit, because of so many factors. And now we have the ability to unlock the power of renewable energy just about anywhere in the world, and virtually everyone could qualify. So as you start to see the possibilities here, I want to take you back to the appliance itself and imagine that there are places all throughout the world where energy gets stuck. At windmill farms or at large-scale solar farms, the energy is only potential energy that's sitting there, and until it starts to be sent and transmitted through the lines, that's when it's usable, and that's when there's revenue that's generated for that plant. So imagine that if we could go and instead of the energy company dictating, well, you can send energy when we need it, we were able to put large-scale utility green boxes on location, utilize that power, digitize it, transmit it to where it's needed. Now we're taking renewable, 100% free renewable energy and giving full credit where it's being created and sending it all over the world where it's really needed. The vision of this is great for, as you look at orphanages or other types of things, we're considering how that can be donated or distributed in a way that people without access to power, third world countries and others that just couldn't afford it, now have the possibility of plugging into a major technology that's benefited the world already in blockchain, and make it so that it's distributed, crowdsourced, and transmitted. So that's really the essence of what we have and what we've been able to do. I'm sure there's probably some questions as it relates to what countries it might this be possible to have access to. This will be a global movement. The actual appliance itself will be available globally. The question of, well, can I plug it in to my home? Initially, as this beta test is rolled out, we want to make sure that these are in a controlled environment. So we're going to allow for the purchase of the appliance, and then they're monitored within our center, and that ensures the efficiency, and we can see all of the analytics that come from it. You'll have access to all of those analytics plus the rewards, and understand you have ownership of that appliance. And if it makes sense that there's source power that you can access somewhere else in the world, absolutely can get that sent there. Any other questions that could be related to, would this turn into any sort of a token or what type of exchanges? Those types of considerations are all possible. Those are things that I know that the company is looking at. But for this type of utility, this is an appliance, and there are potentials of being able to have it tokenized or have the availability for exchange. Those are all possibilities that could be considered. Again, that's for now. It is really the access to a technology and appliance that could be plugged in anywhere. I think that covers the majority of some of the questions that could be asked or frequently asked questions. What I'd like to do is, Marcus, after seeing this and hearing some of the things, maybe there's some questions that come to your mind or that others might be sending to you. Let's take just a few minutes and see if there's any of those that we could cover. Otherwise, hopefully you can see a new possibility here that could really transform a lot of things.
David, that's fantastic. Thanks very much for that explanation, and you've done a really good job, I think, of putting it into layman's terms. And I actually think my ex-girlfriend was partially onto this, where she had one of these inverters where I would give her a little bit of data, and then she would come back at me with a whole bunch of energy. But unfortunately, we didn't have a way to store that and make a good thing from it. So, but on a serious note, one of the questions I guess that's come through is this green battery. Is it actually storing energy as data, or is it more so storing value as cryptocurrency, if you like, that can be used as credits to pay for energy elsewhere?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And so how that works is it really is the storing of the event that took place at the time that the energy was creating a blockchain value. And in the battery, if you noticed in the picture, let me just go back to that. There's all types of tokens that could be, that create an actual coin, and that can be converted. That type of process of, mining or converting that information into a block. All of that can be related to proof of power, and they can be stored in this digital battery, and that becomes a credit, like a Sky Mile, that can be used to be sent anywhere in the world.
Okay, great. Thanks for that. That makes sense. So the next question is, if you are, I guess, you're an owner of this Greenx, and you've got some credit or value, and you want to send it to somebody on the other side of the world, or somebody wants to use it, do they also need one of these machines, or how would that work from the user's end?
Right. So if I've got Sky Miles, for example, and I can't use all of those, then it is possible to be able to transfer those credits or those Sky Miles to someone else. The same type of, if it were possible for me to create credits in digital energy, and there's a demand for that, meaning that if I am able to create energy at a renewable free type of a cost, and someone in countries around the world where it's 21 cents, 30, 40 cents in cost to them, is it possible to transfer that? We're saying that it is through this digital battery, and how that takes place over the next few weeks. You'll start to see releases and press releases that deliver that. We just have to make sure that again, this group is kind of seeing it pre-released of everybody, and I love where your head's going, because that's where ours is as well.
Right, fantastic. And I do understand that this is real early days, so we're really getting a great peek behind the curtain here and seeing what's going on in the manufacturing shop, if you like. So we're certainly excited to see this information as it comes to hand. Another question is, does there need to be an agreement signed with people's existing power company? And if so, how would that take place?
Right, so it is not necessary for the power company to give permission for the use of BC energy or blockchain digital energy. We're still using the same transmission lines, and so the energy companies are happy. They're still going to be plugged in. what really we're leveraging is crowdsourced energy that can build up credits that help to offset the cost of power around the world. Similar to what the solar industry did, and their whole model is that if someone has, let's say, 7,000 kilowatts of power usage for their home, then let's get solar panels on the roof that create DC energy that offset the majority of that. And really what the panels are doing during the day, they were overproducing, because at night, solar is ineffective. You have about 5.5 hours of power generation. So if I can create an overproduce during the day, I can push credits, which was called net metering, back in through the grid. The energy companies would give me a value or credit for that overproduction of energy. And then when I'm using energy at night, they would, again, allow me to buy my own energy back. This is a lot of the reason why battery backup storage, became a lot more popular, just not very cost effective. So the permissions, or do we have to have a sign off like net metering does in solar? It is not required, because we're not asking to intervene within the power transmission or the generation. We're just bridging the two so that you have access to credits that can be applied towards energy production or virtually anything.
Fantastic. Thanks for that, David. For the average person who is maybe talking to somebody else about this once, we can, how would you suggest for, I guess, talking to a skeptic, if they're going to say, how would this be considered a green initiative if you're ultimately plugging into the grid and using the existing sources of energy outside of, obviously, people who will plug into their solar or renewable energy that they may be running already?
Yeah, great question. And so always think of it as where does that customer, where does that potential prospect or suspect fit into the whole equation? So do they have access to renewable energy? If so, that energy can be leveraged to give them maximum credits that could be valued at much greater than the cost that they would, or the value they would get back from net metering. If they're in a place where they have high energy costs, then they might be value to the ecosystem to where there's a demand, and with an abundant supply at low cost energy, they can plug into the demand side, and the average mean of, let's say it ends up being 10 cents or 12 cents is lowered for them. And that becomes a value. So I think one really has to look at, which is why we do this assessment for a potential customer, is to really help them to declare whether or not they have donated or ability to donate power at a low cost, or if they have a demand for power, and we can just kind of see what that looks like for them, if there's going to be an overall benefit to them. And if there is, then the suggestion would be, gosh, what if it were possible for you to plug into power that is, completely renewable? Or what if it were possible to get higher credits than you were getting from your energy company who's giving you net metering? And if they say, well, that sounds interesting, then you can kind of go through just a few second presentation of blockchain energy. BC energy is the way to invert digitized energy into value for you.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks very much. Probably, I guess, coming to the last questions for this session, David, is, and we may be featuring a little bit here, but you mentioned this would be available ultimately around the world. However, would you see it being a staged rollout, starting with any markets that you could speak of in particular?
Yeah, so most of the markets that we'd be looking at is actually markets outside of the United States, because the fact that there's, within the United States, there's so many different, power regulations. There's different sources. There's different types of things. So there's a huge market outside of the United States for this, and really we have a center where the cost of power is somewhere between 5 and 7 cents. And so that's where we're kind of looking at the ability to capture that and monetize that for for this group and for the initial beta test before it gets distributed out in more of a global shipping of the actual appliance around the world.
Okay, fantastic. Well, I can't wait to learn more about this myself and certainly see it in action. And David, thanks. We really appreciate you taking the time to jump onto this call. And for our members out there, I'm sure we have more specific questions related to Ormeus and the opportunity, but I think we'll save that for another platform. So again, David, unless there's any extra little tidbits you want to give us, a peek behind the curtain, we'll say thank you very much for your time, and it's been a great call.
Well, thank you very much. I think it's probably closing thoughts. I'm a sales guy at heart, and the way I think of how this could be value to the marketplace is that for the first time, these members on the call and again, as we expand throughout the world, become energy or power. I mean, they're really kind of independent energy potential of brokers, if you will, that you can see where there's power sources available and give just about everyone in the world the possibility of lower cost or almost no cost power, even rewards beyond what it costs for production. And that just wasn't possible before. So really wrap your mind around the opportunity there, because that makes a whole new world of great potential, even for someone who doesn't understand blockchain technology, who doesn't understand all of the things that have happened in the advances over the past few years. They really don't need to. Plug in a box and get rewards for it. It's pretty simple.
Fantastic technology, excellent delivery, David, and look forward to hopefully meeting you at some time again in the near future. Appreciate your time, and thanks everybody for joining us on this webinar.
Thanks much.